Welcome to Shoot Me Straight. Dave Fields, Eddie Gallagher. We're here today with Jake Kinsinger. Say that right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
He's buddies of mine have told me for a while, oh, you got to hear his story. And I've told them, hey, don't tell us anything about it. We want to hear it really kind of first time. So we don't even know that much about your background and story. Let's start off with just where you're from, just childhood, where you grew up.
Okay. So I grew up in Oklahoma City. I was born in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and then when I was a baby, we moved to Oklahoma City. I lived there till I was 18. Grew up bow hunting and wakeboarding. Didn't play a whole lot of other sports. Did a lot of backpacking, hanging out in the woods with my dad.
A lot of outdoor stuff.
Almost strictly outdoor stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Brothers, sisters?
I've got a little brother named Joe. He's 2 years younger than me. He's in medical school at OU right now.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
How was high school, like, going through? Did you stay there until high school?
So I left. I actually moved. I went to the New Mexico Military Institute for the first semester of my freshman year of high school in Roswell. I got bullied a little bit in middle school, and my dad and I got in a headbutting match one day. I said, I don't want to go to the Catholic high school. That's where all those kids went. They were dicks. I didn't want to be around them. And he's like, oh, well, you can go to military school. I said, okay, I'm going to military school. So I found an MMI in Roswell, and I headed there that August.
So you went there, that was your choice to go to that military school?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a dumb choice, but my decision.
Yeah, how was that experience there?
It was, like I tell everyone, it's like military school in the movies. You know, it's 4 a.m., they're beating your door down, and you're basically fresh out of 8th grade. And it was high school through junior college. So the real ROTC guys that had come from other colleges that were there, we were doing PT with them. We were running with them. We were doing everything with them. So as a 14-year-old kid, it sucked.
How are you treated though? Like as a 14-year-old kid, because I can only imagine. So yeah, you're there with 8th grade all the way to, you said junior college.
Mm-hmm.
So how, like, obviously, in my mind, if it's like a true military academy, they have those junior college kids like instructing or leading everything. So how was that?
They were hardcore.
Yeah.
They were hardcore. We didn't really get hazed. I think my mom was afraid when I went that we were going to get hazed real bad. I mean, they didn't beat us, right? Those kids were cocky, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were cocky. And
I can only imagine. Yeah, I mean, because it's that authority complex thing where if you give, because these kids aren't in the military yet,
right.
None of them, right? But they're all acting like they're LARPing, like they're in the military, or playing like this is what they think the military is. And if you give, kids of a certain age that authority, like, hey, now you're in charge of these younger kids coming in, and you don't have like supervision there to actually like, hey, this is how you actually lead or conduct, things to help kids, bring like you 8th graders and everything on up, then I can see that getting out of hand.
Yeah. It was fun though at the same time, but definitely made me tough. I wasn't afraid of bullying when I got back home.
Really?
Not one bit. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Did you end up going to that Catholic high school when you got back?
Yeah, I went straight there and loved it, and walked tall and carried all the way through.
Awesome. So how long did you stay in the military?
No. I went for that first semester, and that was it. My dream was to go to West Point, and so I thought that was a really big stepping stone, even though everyone I talked, my dad had me talk to a couple guys that went to some of the academies. Every one of them said it doesn't matter. Go where you're gonna go and excel. And you can get into the academy. Being at a military school and excelling is just no different than being at your Catholic high school and excelling.
Yeah, because they're going to train you at West Point regardless. Yeah.
Right.
Was your dream to go into a specific branch of the military?
Well, West Point's the Army.
Army, but my dad was in the Army for a little bit, so that's what I wanted to do. But nothing in particular. No.
Gotcha. And it was good when you went back to the Catholic high school?
Mm-hmm.
Things went well?
Yeah, things went great. My parents got divorced my junior year. But other than that, things were great. Yeah. And I was investing a lot of time outside, especially after my parents got divorced. I would come home from school. I kept my bow in my truck, and I would go straight from school to this river that was behind my house, and I would bow fish till it got completely dark. And sometimes I would even sleep in my truck out there. And then I would come home, and I was like one with the woods at this point in time in my life. On the weekends, I would go camp out on the river and fish all night long, and then sleep during the day with one other buddy. And then I realized, okay, I think wildlife's where my heart's at, and so I kind of shifted gears and decided that I wanted to study wildlife in college, and left the potential military thing on the side.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so when you graduated, did you go straight to college? Or?
I did, yep. I went to Mississippi State to study wildlife law enforcement.
Okay.
Yep.
How was that?
It was good. I loved Mississippi State. My college years weren't traditional, though, in terms of I didn't graduate. I had a lot of fun, right? We partied a lot. And I learned a lot, but my junior year, one of our friends got shot and killed. And he was a friend of mine, but he wasn't we weren't best buddies or anything. It was really hard on us. He bled out in the street with my buddy, holding him.
Was this like an altercation?
Yeah, they left the bar, and some guys kind of pushed him and said, "Hey, give me your wallet," and some words were said, and someone pulled out a pistol and shot him in the head. Just quick like that. So after that, one of my dearest friends, Austin, was the one that was with him when he died, and we were partying a lot more, going to class less. We were really going through some tough times, really tough times, and I'm trying to think of it chronologically, how exactly it happened. But so after Joseph died, I decided that I was going to go. I found this company called ProTrack in South Africa, like northern South Africa on the Mozambique border, and they hunt poachers down. Right? They stop these guys that are taking rhino horns. And I'm an avid outdoorsman and hunter. I've hunted in Africa. These guys stop the real bad guys that make people like us look bad.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic deal. So I talked to my advisor. I was going into my senior year, and I said, "Hey man, can I get credit if I just take a year off and like catch my breath? We've gone through some shit." And he said, "Yeah, go there and then write a paper on your experiences." So I started running and training and getting ready to. I think I was going to head out there in July or August, maybe. Mm-hmm. And we had a lake house in Oklahoma, and me and a few of my buddies went up there that May. I think it was Memorial Weekend. Maybe it was a little before. And when I was in high school, hanging out on the river all the time, I caught a lot of snakes. I love snakes, and I was fascinated by them. I'm all animals. We were at the lake, and my buddy went ashore off the boat to take a shit, and there was a snake, and we were going to eat it, and he started hollering at me. He's like, "Dude, you got to, come catch this snake, come catch this snake." So I jumped off the boat, got him a little kayak, We were on a pontoon. We had little tiny kayaks on the pontoon. I kayaked over there, and I picked it up, and it bit me in the hand. And it was a water moccasin, and it pumped me so fucking full. I started puking, and my brother, we had a wakeboard boat too that was tied up to the pontoon. I started screaming at my brother. My arm started swelling up very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly. And so he came and got me with his buddy and sped to the marina and got me to the hospital. And
Jeez.
yeah, that's a really long story in itself, but I could not go to Africa because of that injury. So I tried to get better all summer. I spent like a week in the ICU.
I didn't know water moccasins were that poisonous. I knew they were poisonous, but
Yeah.
and it reacts pretty fast.
Very fast.
Yeah, you're supposed to, back in the day it was if you get. I remember way back in the day, you'd be like, oh, suck the blood out and this and that, which doesn't work.
Right.
That's a myth. And then basically with the snake bite, right away, if you don't have obviously anti-venom or anything like that on you, you tourniquet the arm to make sure that venom doesn't able to pass up to the rest of the body and obviously get them to further level of care immediately because it can get bad.
God, yeah.
Joey, my brother, he did. I told him, I said, put a tourniquet around me. If you've never had a tourniquet on you, that
hurts.
Fucking hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, your arm is, you can't feel it. I had him tie a wakeboard line around me and cinch it, and he had his feet on my ribs, and he was just cranking down on it. It hurt so bad. I was like, dude, fucking stop. And he'd let off, and they'd put back on, which, obviously is going to do no good at that point.
Yeah, if it's hurting, it's on right.
Right.
Yeah.
right. So.
Wow, so you almost died from it, or you could have died.
I tell people that all the time. You'll meet people, like if you've been bit by a venomous snake like that, you will meet 10 people that say, oh, I was bit by one too, it wasn't that bad. Like, no, then you got bit dry or you weren't fucking bit or it wasn't a water moccasin or it wasn't a rattlesnake. If you get bit and they pump into you, I should show you pictures of me. 45 minutes later in the hospital. I mean, arm the size of a balloon, chest huge, it swelled in my chest, and it's excruciating. It feels like there's shards of glass in your veins. Yeah, it was very, very, very painful.
And then because of that, they couldn't let you go. Could you just not fly on a plane there?
So I got out of the hospital, and the snake doctor in eastern Oklahoma, so I was in a tribal hospital where Choctaw, and so in Oklahoma, there's a tribal hospital. And so that doctor in the tribal hospital deals with snake bites all the time. The doctor in Oklahoma City doesn't necessarily deal with snake bites all the time. She had seen my case. She knew me well. She wanted me to stay in the area so she could treat me, every week.
Monitor.
Right. So instead of living in Starkville, I was living at my lake house with absolutely no money. And I would go down to the, like a little creek in the lake every day, and I would set trot lines for catfish and eat catfish. And in the midst of that, with my hand all bandaged up and the skin falling off, and I got infected really bad in my bone because the fang had pierced my bone, and I got an infection in my bone marrow. So that was in May, and I didn't realize anything had happened. It just was swelling and not really getting better. So that May, I had a real bad flare-up, swelled up really bad at a wedding, and I went to the hospital in Starkville, Mississippi, back to Starkville, and was in there for another week, and they put a PICC line in me. So it's July, and I was supposed to leave in August, so I was going everywhere with a fucking IV bag and pole. There was no going to Africa and training to hunt poachers, right? So I didn't know what to do. When I told my advisor what happened, I was like, you got to get me back in classes. And he said, he's like, well, senior year of wildlife law enforcement. There's not 100 seats in every class. There's 10 for the specialized classes you're in. And he's like, dude, I can put you in freshman classes, but it's not gonna get you anywhere.
Yeah.
So I look in this place and these people in Hawaii on the Big Island, and they needed someone to come live with them and build their house. I grew up as a carpenter in high school. I helped frame, I was like a helper on a framing crew and always did projects. So I had some tools and some know-how. And they ran a bee farm, and they didn't have really any money. They said, okay, you can come here. We've built you a hut on a little boat trailer. We have 5 acres in the jungle, like middle of nowhere jungle. And if you build our house, we'll give you food and water. You work 25 hours a week. And I was like, okay, I can do that. So I got my...
Were you a little bit nervous about now bees can sting you too?
Yeah, it didn't really bother me, I guess.
Once you've been bit by a water moccasin, you're like, whatever.
There's no snakes in Hawaii.
Bee sting, I'm good.
No big deal. So I got in touch with them and flew out there. And I didn't know how long I was going to stay, but I knew I was going to stay. I flew in. I had a kind of a flare-up in my hand. And my dad is a physician, and he got some antibiotics for me at the pharmacy, and it killed it. I've since, knock on wood, I've never had any other issue other than my thumb's bent at 90 degrees, but that's it. It's fine. Yeah. And so I got there, and it was a hut. It was a fucking hut with screens for windows. It was 2 sheets of plywood for the floor and a mattress that was soaking wet all the time because of the humidity. Yeah. And I had a car battery with an inverter, and I had a lamp and a phone charger and the blue jugs of water. They would go into the park in town and fill them up at the hose, and they would drive it up for me, like, not very often, every 2 weeks. That was all I really needed.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And canned tuna, pasta. I'd never cooked in my life, and I got out to this hut, and they had all this pasta. I was like, I don't know how to cook pasta. I had a little propane burner, and I would do my work. I'd work, pretty much Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then have the rest of the time off. And I would hitchhike into town and then I saw these guys spearfishing. I'd never spearfished. I wanted to get into that, so I bought a wetsuit and like a pole spear, not a spear gun, but a pole. Mm-hmm. And none of the beach in Hawaii is private, right? So I could sleep on the beach wherever I wanted. So I would go and I would spearfish and sleep on the beach and go get some beers at the bars. And then come Monday, roll around, I would hitchhike back to Honoka'a, the little town I lived in, and walk back up to my hut and work some more.
What was your work consistent of there?
Carpentry, and sometimes I insulated their house. I insulated their house, helped put the roof on, built the fence, framed. Didn't do any sheetrock. We put plywood all over the walls.
Was this you by yourself?
Me, the owner would help, and there was an old Hawaiian man named JJ who lived on another 5 acres next door. He was like a cattle farmer, a really, really good old Hawaiian man.
Yeah.
He was in his 70s at the time, though. He would come over and help. His, Hawaii is such a good community, right? All these people would come and help here, help there, and you'd give them beer or whatever they wanted. Everyone was real laid back and helpful. Them being all farmers, you don't think of cowboys in Hawaii. These guys were cowboys. They had tools, they had welders. They could come, get done whatever you needed done, just like a good old boy in Georgia would.
And did they pay you?
No.
You just got paid in food
and water.
Shelter.
Yeah. My mom gave me, mom and dad gave me a couple $100 a month, and I'd go into town and buy some beer and chicken wings.
Gotcha.
You can eat so much canned tuna and,
Yeah,
and pasta with no vegetables, you know. You get vegetables. They would bring me some vegetables, and they would fucking, I would eat them all at the same time, because if they went 12 hours, they're like bugs and maggots. They're no good. No good.
Gotcha. During this time where you had been lonely.
Yeah, I was extremely lonely. So let me step back. Before I went to Hawaii, I got to get this chronologically correct. I hope this makes sense. Right before I went to Hawaii, when I was back in the hospital in Mississippi, my really good friend Austin that I told you about, that was with my buddy Joseph when he died, he bought a handgun to protect himself after that happened. We were all on our toes. Wasn't super experienced with it, and accidentally shot himself one night when I was in the hospital. So I was going through some shit. You know, I'd had some buddies die. I wasn't really in school anymore. I'm living in the jungle by myself. Reading books till 3 a.m. because it's fucking scary in the jungle. Like, I had my headlamp on, and I would read. I'd never really read my whole life. I'd sit there and just read and read and read, because there's weird noises in the jungle. You're fucking by yourself. Yeah, it was a very tough time.
Do you think in some ways you were doing that like almost as like a therapy for yourself, or like?
I was. If I wasn't doing that, then I would have been back in Mississippi just partying to forget about it, right? At the time, it was kind of fun. And then I look back on it, I'm like, man, that sucked. You ever been standing on the side of the road and you got you're 50 miles from home, 40 miles from home, whatever it was, and it gets fucking dark and no one will pick you up, and you got to find somewhere to, like, you're cold, so I'd put my wetsuit on and sleep in the sand, bury myself in the sand. That sucks.
Yeah.
And your phone's dead. You got shitty service, even if you do have your phone, and then you get up and you just start walking, and maybe someone will pick you up. That was tough. That was tough at times.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, in your mind, when you went out there, were you thinking, hey, this is just for the college, just for this time period in college, and then I'll come back, finish my senior year?
I think after Austin died, I never wanted to see Starkville, Mississippi again.
Got ya.
You know, it was pretty scarred for me.
Yeah. So you think you went there like as an escape?
Yes. I didn't really know what to do, but I know I needed a break. And that was my escape, absolutely.
Yeah. And like, I know you're talking about how tough it was and lonely and everything else, but looking back on it now, are you like, yeah, I'm glad I went and did that, or is it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I don't know I don't know where my path would have gone had I not gone to Hawaii. Again, I would have been just partying and kicking rocks along, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do.
Yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense to me, because, I mean, outdoors has always been your happy place, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's where you head to like deal with the trauma.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it is. I got some buddies that stayed and just kept doing the same old thing. And
how long did you stay there in Hawaii?
I was there from August to November, so 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I shot a turkey right before Thanksgiving. So that's when I left, right before Thanksgiving.
Spirit with your spear.
I wish, man. I wanted to, because I'd see them in the hogs. And no, I shot it with a pellet rifle. Shot it in the head.
What year was this?
2017.
Okay, 2017. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
So you're there 4 months, and then you leave and go back to Oklahoma, or to?
So my mom had moved to Nashville around my 21st birthday, so right before I left. And my dad was in Oklahoma City, but he was, I don't remember if he was engaged at the time or not, but he was going to get married to a new lady. And my mom had this house in Nashville. I was like, okay, I'm going to go live with Mom. in Nashville, I'm a lot closer to everyone I know at this time period in my life, right? I'm right on top of Mississippi. I've got friends in Memphis. I've got friends in Atlanta, Birmingham. I'm central there. I definitely decided when I got home then, okay, I'm not going back to school. I got to get a job and start a normal life, right? So I looked up wildlife jobs in Nashville, and I got a job with like a wildlife exterminator type company. You know, like if you got squirrel in your attic, they'll get it out. Yeah. So I thought, okay, that's good for me. I can catch animals. This will be good for me. And it sucked. It was like fucking. They sell it as, all right, you're going to be, snaring raccoons all day. Yeah, 10% of the time. 90% of the time, you're on a 40-foot ladder with a tube of caulk, silicone, and, cracks and bricks so that mice don't get in. Yeah. And my foreman was a fucking prick. He was horrible. He would have us leave. I would leave my house at 3 a.m. to get to the shop where we'd meet, and I'd get home at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I'm making $15 an hour. Like, it was tons of work. And I did that for a month. And my last day, we had a job in Memphis, which is like a 3-hour drive, so another deal. Okay, get up at 3 a.m. for some flying squirrels in an attic. And I drove to Memphis with a bunch of kids had just gotten hired. There were 2 kids. I drove them in my truck, and then there was another guy who'd gotten hired, and we had 2 houses in Memphis to do. And it was like 2 in the afternoon, and this foreman, who was my age, it's not like he was 50 years old, we were the same age, he wouldn't let us go to lunch. It was 2 o'clock. We'd been working since 3, and I'm like, fuck this, man. I can't go to lunch. I'm starving. I'm up on a roof. And he was like, yep, or you can just quit. So I took my drill off, or my tool belt, and my work phone, I threw it in the truck, and I left. And I called my dad. He didn't answer, which was unusual, unless he was flying. So my dad, after my parents got divorced, got his pilot's license. And he wanted to do something to give back with his pilot's license. He was big into, okay, I'm at the second half of my life, I want to do something good for the world. Yeah. My dad had 2 really, really big interests, like charity interests, rescue animals and veterans. Okay, so he looked at, I don't remember exactly what the organization did, but he looked at flying veterans that need to go see their families, have operations, whatever it may be, flying them on his dime. And he looked at flying animals that were going to be euthanized to places where people would take them. Denver was a big place he would take dogs because in Colorado, it's the law, dogs have to be spayed or neutered. So they don't have a lot of dogs. So he would fly, he would get on his forum, and it would say, okay, I've got 5 puppies in Houston. Someone needs to take them to Nashville, for instance. So he would get up, and he would go to the airport, and he would fly these dogs. So you didn't necessarily know when Dad was flying, right? So, okay, well, he's probably flying. So I was like, fuck, I don't know how to get home. I don't have, that much money, and I tried to rent a car, and for whatever reason, I couldn't rent a car, so I called U-Haul, and I rented a big-ass van. I think I wasn't 25, and you can't rent a car unless you're 25, but you can rent a U-Haul. So I rented this big-ass U-Haul van. I was like, all right, I'm going to drive this to Nashville. So I call an Uber, and I get in an Uber to go to the U-Haul place, and this guy who was a friend of my dad who occasionally flew my dad's plane, he called me, and it was the most bizarre phone conversation. He said, Jake, your dad's plane was flying to Houston, and it's over the Gulf, and he is not responding. And then he went into, I don't want you to harm yourself. I don't want you to turn to drugs. And I was like, so what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
What are you talking about, all harming myself or turn to drugs? Where the fuck is my dad? And he was like, he was flying a dog to Houston, and we don't know what happened, but there's F-15s on his tail out of New Orleans following him. And he's not responding. They're shooting flares at him. He's unconscious. And I started crying, right? I'm like, what the fuck happened? So I get to the U-Haul place. I'll never forget this. In Memphis, right? I'm in a foreign world. I don't know where I am. I'm crying so hard I can't talk, right? And my mom doesn't know anything. My brother doesn't know anything. All I know is that this guy has called me to tell me this bizarre news. So get in this fucking U-Haul, and it's dark at this point, right? Like pitch black. And I drive it, the whole way home, talking to Phil here and there. I would call him, and he's like, yeah, the plane went down. I think at like 7:30, it went into the Gulf. I was like, okay. So I called my mom, and I said, hey, Mom, I'm coming to your house, and I wanted to wait to tell you this in person, but this is what happened. I think Dad, and my brother had some friends in town. We'd just been in New Mexico on a snowboarding trip with my dad for New Year's. This was January 3rd. And Joey still had some friends in town. They drove from Oklahoma City to Nashville. Then my brother went to University of Georgia. So they were kind of making their way back to Atlanta, or Athens slowly. And he had all these buddies over there, and they were all, goofing around. And I grabbed my brother and told him what was going on. And the next day, I wake up, Coast Guard's got nothing. Call the Coast Guard. Me and my uncle I'm talking to my uncle. My uncle calls the Coast Guard. And they're like, yeah, we don't know where he is. Like, what the fuck? What were the planes?
Yeah, the F-15s that were.
Yeah, the F-15s are following Dad, right? Mm-hmm. And his plane goes down. Well, they don't have coordinates. Okay, well, they had to turn around. Why did they turn around? Well, they were low on fuel. Okay, so the F-15s were low on fuel, but my dad's fucking Cessna was good. Okay, and then I've told that to people, and they say, well, F-15s actually don't hold a whole lot of fuel. So we call again. We're like, are there boats going out? No, there's no boats going out. And we're talking to someone different at the Coast Guard, and he says, but the F-15s had to turn around because they were Mexican airspace. We're like, wait, we thought they were low on fuel. Okay? And then he's like, oh, no, those were the F-15s. The F-16s had to turn around because they were Mexican airspace. We're like, where are the F-16s? They're like, well, they took over after the Air Guard turned around with the 15s and went back to New Orleans. We're like, okay, are they looking for Dad? And they're like, no, it's 7-foot seas. We're going to send a boat out in 2 days. Till then, we're going to send a big plane to, glass for him. So you're 2 days, you're going to send a slow boat from the Yucatan to look for Dad. It was that runaround the whole time. I don't, they found a small debris field a couple days later that no one ever was able to put their hands on. And
did they give you a general area of where he was?
Yes. Yes. About the size of Connecticut. Wow. He's north of the Yucatan. And actually, the Coast Guard didn't even give us those coordinates. I got them from FlightAware. Anyone can get on FlightAware and see his last known position is at 20,000 feet here. Mm-hmm. And FlightAware updates every minute, and that was it. So I'm like, I feel like I'm being lied to, but why am I being lied to? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of conspiracy that goes along with this that can go left, right, and upside down. So I make the decision that I'm 22. I don't know what I'm doing really, but I'm like, I'm going to lead something and we're going to find the plane. We're going to find some closure because it's all gone out the window at this point, right? Like the military is not looking for it. And I call and I said, can we talk to the pilots that saw Dad? You know, the F-15 pilots. Like, no, they just got deployed. You can't talk to them. It's like, okay. So I'll come back to that point, but I met those F-15 pilots at Chiringo fucking 4 or 5 years later.
Wow.
Where me and my wife were sitting there, and they're all these dudes are in there, and we're like, okay, there's a bunch of military guys or, you know, a fraternity reunion. You know, they're like having fun and cutting up. And, I have a silver bracelet that has my dad's tail number on it, you know, of the plane. And this guy's like, oh, do you fly? And I'm like, no, my dad flew. And he's like, oh, okay. I was like, do you guys fly? And they're like, yeah, we're all F-15 pilots for the Air Guard out of New Orleans. We're here training. I was like, you're the F-15 pilots for the Air Guard out of New Orleans? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, do you know Bill Kinsinger? And it looked like he'd seen a fucking ghost. He was like, looked at his buddy. He's like, remember Bill Kinsinger? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm his son. It was the...
That is crazy that you just ran into them by happenstance.
Isn't that bizarre?
Wow. At Chiringo's.
At Chiringo's.
Yeah.
Great beach.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
Isn't that wild? And I said, I need to know what happened to my dad. Why did I get all this bullshit? You know, why can no one tell me why y'all turned around? Why can no one tell me that there's no lat launch where the plane hit? We can't tell you. They're like, we can't tell you, but we can tell you that there was no foul play, you know, on our part.
On our part, they said that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that pretty much saying that there was some foul play somewhere?
Whether they know it or not, I don't know.
I mean, when you just hear a statement like that where they're like, well, there's no foul play on our part. And so that's sort of inviting that there was foul play.
Right. And why can no one... Like, okay, well, then why can't you tell me what happened? It's very simple. A civilian went down in an airplane.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, not interesting to them.
Would that be, from your, like, would that be classified?
What's that?
How could that be classified? Like, it's a civilian plane?
I don't know if it's classified or, I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing the story, but it's just interesting to me that you meet these guys by happenstance, which is crazy, and then they know who your dad is, recognize the name, which this is like, what, 5 years later?
Maybe 4.
4 or 5?
Yeah.
Okay, and then they can't, like, oh, we can't tell you anything, but there's no foul play on our part.
Right.
So that right there just raises, like, all sorts of questions.
Yeah.
And I've had questions since day one. And then you meet them and you're like, okay, I'm about to find out from the guys.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, no, our hands are in the air on this one. The biggest theory that we have, that an attorney told me, like an aviation attorney, he said, I think they weren't supposed to be there because the planes were armed. And they were in Mexican airspace, and they were not allowed to be armed in Mexican airspace, so they had to turn around, but they can't tell you that.
I can believe that. I mean, that sounds feasible where, you can't fly into another country's airspace with weapons on your plane. I mean, there's probably all sorts of laws.
Right.
You know.
So.
But they couldn't give you any info into, you know, he was passed out or he...
They said his head was just tilted over on his shoulder like he was unconscious, and they said their wings were together. And they were rocking the plane.
Trying to wake him up.
Yeah, trying to knock his head and wake him up, and
Nothing.
he wouldn't wake up. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And it was just him and the dog.
He was going to pick up the dog,
Pick
so
up
it was
the
just
dog.
him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Dad was also flying really high, 20,000 feet in a little plane. is high.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really high. There's not a lot of oxygen. So why he went unconscious, we'll never know. We'll never know that. But yeah,
So during this, back to like when it first happened, and you're trying to get answers, you're not getting them.
Right.
From there, did you go? Okay, what'd you do from there?
I went to a map shop in Nashville. I grew up on boats and stuff. I knew nothing about the saltwater other than me and my dad grew up diving. With my brother. Did a lot of scuba diving. He said did spearfishing in Hawaii, but I didn't know about navigation or driving a boat in the sea. So I went to a map shop and bought a bunch of nautical charts of the area and put the FlightAware lat-longe on the charts. I learned how to plot it. And I enrolled in sailing school in Panama City. As I decided I can, we've all watched Discovery Channel and National Geographic, and people go look for treasure, and they have side scan sonar, and they see the bottom. I'm like, okay, I know where the plane went down. I can get a boat, and I can drag this sonar and find it, right? But I'm broke, so I decide, okay, it has to be a sailboat. I can't afford diesel to drive down to Mexico for however long, and I needed a big boat, right, to live in and to hold the sonar equipment. So I enrolled in sailing school in Panama City and spent like 3 weeks going through all the courses up to celestial navigation, right? So, lived on the boats with them, learned a bunch about sailing. I started a GoFundMe. I raised like $30,000 to buy a boat, which was not near enough, and get down to Mexico. So this was maybe February. It was February that I did the sailing school in Panama City. Buy a boat, 37-foot monohull sailboat, like a 1985, and it was rough. The motor sucked. And keep in mind, I'm about to sail it across the Gulf, and live on it. Like it needs to be, a sound boat. So with the help of the guy that taught me how to sail, he'd sailed to Mexico a bunch of times. And my other instructor, he just sailed to Ireland in a 25-foot boat from Maine. I swapped the motor. I rewired pretty much the whole boat, replaced all the lines on the boat, and sailed it a bunch. I lived at a little marina in downtown Panama City. This was before Michael. And man, you could do a television show just off of the people that live in a marina, right? Especially a marina it was $200 a month to keep my boat there. And, water, electricity, internet, all that. I probably had the only operational boat in that place. People had cut holes in the sides of their boats and put window units in them. They're living there. This is their home. Most of them bought their boats for $100, that were derelict boats and they just need them. Then there were people that got kicked out of the marina that dropped anchor right behind the marina. We call them SEAL Team 69. And they would snorkel around looking for shit that we dropped underneath our boats. Totally unemployed, and just living life, man. And there was one guy that lived next to me that we called Fast Eddie. He came in one day, I was taking a nap on my boat, and his fucking big, sport fish boat, the Happy Hooker on the transom, and he's backing it in right next to me, and he just looks like a scallywag, right? Like a hard dude that's been at sea for
salty.
Just salty. And he's backing it in one day and screaming, and because he's only got one motor, and I come out on my boat because someone had jumped up on my boat to help him get his boat in, and a bunch of people knew this guy. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, I don't need some dude like this under my, living right on my doorstep. And I got to talking to Floyd, the guy that was his dock master. Floyd had like a big gut, and he never wore a shirt, and he had all these scars on his stomach, and I never knew what they were for. I was like, man, this guy's sketchy. I don't like this guy. He's like, yeah. He used to run coke from the Keys up to here, and he had some nightclubs. And we were kind of buddies back in the day, and someone tried to shoot him in the parking lot of one of his nightclubs, and I stepped in front of him, and that's how I got all these holes, all these scars in my gut, was protecting Eddie. So we go way back, and he's a good guy, and he'll actually protect you should you need it. And I was like, okay, all right, this guy's all right. I'll live with it. So I got a job cutting fish across the street. I'd work from 8 to noon, and I would fillet fish. And then I would leave work, and I would work on the sailboat or sail. I would take it out, spend the night on it, and learn everything there was about that boat.
Yeah.
Knew it like the back of my hand. Yeah. Planned for an October departure. So this all started in February. We're going to sail this time of year, mid-October. We're gonna sail to the Yucatan. Had the whole search area mapped out, but we didn't have side scan. It was like $100,000 for the side scan we needed. There's 2 companies that make side scan, 2 big companies. One of them wouldn't return my calls, and one of them said they'd be willing to let me use their demo equipment if a company representative was on the boat with me. No one would go on the boat with me. They're like, you can't pull that in a sailboat safely. Being on the sailboat's dangerous. It's hot. There's no AC. No one wanted to do it,
Yeah.
And they're scientists, too. They're not like...
Hardcore like sailors, yeah.
Right. It didn't fit the bill. So this one guy comes down and with the equipment, and he heard my story. And he's like, okay. And a side scan, sonars, have you ever seen one?
Mm-mm. No.
Looks like a missile. It's like 6 feet long and 10 inches around. It's not like a fish finder transducer you stick on the bottom of your boat, and you tow it with cable, like electronic cable, and then a real cable behind your boat, like hundreds and hundreds of feet behind your boat. And it's way down low. And one of the big concerns with them is, you're dragging this thing, and Dad was in 800 feet of water, give or take. And there's a mountain underwater, and this fucker gets snagged. It's going to rip the ass end out of your boat, and you're going to lose $100,000 worth of equipment.
And you're going to start to sink.
Yeah. So, without a bunch of experience, especially, no one wanted to agree to it. So this guy comes down, though, from the company, and he says, we're like having beers one night. After he drops all the equipment off, he's like, someone's buying this equipment. It's for sale. It's always for sale, right? It's our demo. And they're expecting it in 3 months. I told the company I'm going with you, but I'm not. Like, you have to learn how to use the shit, and it has to come home. And because,
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah. He was like, because I like what you're doing, and I agree with you, and I think it can be done. I'm going to give you the equipment. And I was like, okay, I appreciate that, man. And man, I had this big bimini top deal welded over the cockpit of my boat, and I had a platform. One was for a generator, big generator, and the other was for the winch that pulled this thing. Took a giant winch, the size of a suitcase, that would coil all the cable up, and we said plan to leave right when Hurricane Michael was coming. So I'd done a bunch of sailing in the area to get ready, sailed to Tampa and came back, and didn't want to go till hurricane season was over. Didn't want to be anchored in the Yucatan we didn't know how long we were going to be there, weeks, till hurricane season was over. So that was the deal. There was one guy that was going to go with me who taught me how to sail. He's like, I'm not going during hurricane season. So we
put it around, kept working on the boat, learned how to use a side scan, and Hurricane Michael was coming, and it was a Category 2 at that time. And I'll never forget sitting down at, I got a picture of this. All our charts are everywhere, and we're sitting down at the table with an iPad up, watching the storm, and it's like a Category 2, and we're like, okay, I think we can sail across the Gulf and beat it. It's not going to be that bad, right? And then there was a small leak in my shaft, my prop shaft, and he was like, let's work on that and then leave after the hurricane. And I was like, okay. And then it got really bad. Right, Hurricane Michael got really bad, and it was coming right at us.
Literally hit right in Panama.
Like I've got a screenshot of the eye of the storm on top of my sailboat. So I, through the midst of all this, I had flown to Memphis for my buddy's like 1 year. It was the same time as his birthday, but it had been 1 year since he passed, and I met my wife. She was good friends with his girlfriend. So she was down visiting me. She's a teacher, like first grade teacher. She was on fall break, and so she was down with her mom just on 30A, and she came and stayed on the boat with me. And we took the boat to the back of the canal and anchored it up, and we just decided we were going to wait the storm out in the boat. You know, I had spent a year effectively on this boat planning this mission to look for my dad, and I knew that I could steer the boat a little bit should the storm get that bad and like avoid it sinking. I can keep the bilge on, I can pump it out, I can do what I need to. And you know, everyone in the world is calling me like, get the fuck off the boat. Coast Guard makes an announcement. They're like, if you're staying on a boat, write your social security number on your arm. And I think next of kin. So one of those things. And at that point I was like, oh shit. Okay, I shouldn't do this. So I got in my dinghy with her, and we went to a buddy's house. We're like, we'll just spend the night at his house. And then in the middle of the night, he came in. He's like, no, this shit got worse, and it's coming right at us. And at this point, everyone already evacuated. I didn't really realize that, but I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to get out of town. And there was not a soul on the road. It was the most surreal experience. With the storm literally, you know, in our tails leaving. And so we didn't know, you know, we like slept in a hotel in Dothan in the truck in the parking lot, and I was like, okay, I gotta get back. I gotta get on my shit. You know, I've got a mission. I gotta go. Couldn't get back in town for like 2 days. Finally got there. Boat was fucking wrecked, full of water, upside down in a field. My whole marina was completely gone. So Fast Eddie, that guy that was next to me, the only thing that wasn't touched was Fast Eddie told me before I left, you know, he was like rough around the edges. He was like, I'm getting an 8-ball and some whores, and I'm gonna ride this thing out in my boat. And I was just like almost in tears. I was like, he's dead. He's dead. Like, there's absolutely no way. And I finally got it in town a couple days later, and there he was. The marina was gone. All the pilings were lifted up. Boats were all tied together. Everyone tied their boats together, which is a great idea till the docks leave. And then it's a nest of hell. There he was on the back of his boat, perfectly fine. His boat was untouched, and him and his whores were standing on the back deck. He's like, man, that was crazy. That was crazy.
The ultimate pirate.
Yeah, he is. I don't know where he is today, but he's the ultimate pirate. And that was the end of it. I was out of money. Boat was trashed. So boat was full of water. Me and Fast Eddie walked up on the boat, and someone was stealing my generator, you know, and we stopped them, and then I decided I had to get the sonar equipment out. So it was all, I mean, the boat's on land, but it's full of water, right? Like black rainwater. So we got in there, got it all out, got it shipped back to the company, and I gave the boat to the sailing school that taught me how to sail. And they spent another year or so. The motor was still good. I put that brand new Yanmar in it, and they rehabbed it and lived in it for a while. you know, however much insurance money and whatever later that their sailing school got from having all their boats leveled. All their boats were gone.
Yeah.
So they knew my boat, knew, you know, what was there of it was in good condition. And, you know, they spent probably a year rehabbing it.
What was it like for you having your mission kind of cut off at that point? Do you think that was, how do you interpret that? Do you think that was God kind of saving you from?
Well, here's the deal. So when the hurricane hit, it washed up pieces of my dad's plane in Houston the same day. And this guy that knew about my story in Houston found, it was the whole cowling of the plane, the whole engine hood, if you will. It was big as a table. And he got in touch with me, and he was like, I called the Coast Guard. And the Coast Guard takes the piece and loses it. They lost it. It completely disappeared for like 18 months. I called him and called him and called him, and I called that guy and I said, if you find another piece of this plane, so what he lived on the beach in Surfside, Texas, and him and his wife just walk the beach every morning doing trash pickups.
Yeah.
So they're on the beach every day looking for shit. And I said, you know, if you find another piece of my dad's plane, the Coast Guard doesn't get it, you call me and you send it to me. So I've been looking forever. And then this is gone, and he found a big piece of the tail and sent it to me. And then the Coast Guard calls me one day, says, hey, we found this thing in our warehouse. The investigation's over. Do you want it? And I was like, yes, I'll drive to Texas right now and get it. And they're like, no, we're going to ship it. So they took this fucking thing. It's like, it's an airplane hood. It's huge.
Yeah.
And it's carbon fiber. And they crushed it up into like, you know, notepad paper-sized pieces and put it in a fucking 24 by 24 box and shipped it to me. And I called him and I was like, why the fuck did you destroy this? And they're like, well, that was the best way to ship it. And I'm like,
I said I would have came and got it.
I
myself.
literally
Yeah.
would have driven there that night to get it. So I've reassembled it with rivets and sheet metal. So it's together now. But
Oh, really?
yeah.
Dang,
It's
okay.
in my house, standing up in my TV room. Yeah, it's completely put back together. I mean, it looks like someone beat it apart with a baseball bat, but it's together.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
That's a wild
That's
story.
I find it interesting. Like, yeah, dude, the drive that you had the whole time to like go recover what you could of your dad's plane and all the work and effort that you were doing to put into it, and then obviously this hurricane comes and sort of washes that away, but at the same time washes up parts of your dad's plane in Texas. I mean, to me, that's not like coincidence, you know. What do you take of that?
You know, if I laid my navigation chart out and you draw a perfectly straight line from my dad's last known coordinates from FlightAware and his airplane or his airport in Oklahoma City, within 10 nautical miles over the coast of Texas is where my dad's ship washed up. So did Dad go down, 300 miles into the Yucatan? What are the odds everything washed up within 10 nautical miles of where he flew over? It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really precise. So I don't know that my dad's plane went down right off of Cancun. Yeah. I don't know that looking for it there would have done anything. Yeah. Maybe it went down sooner.
For it to wash up all the way in Surfside, Texas.
If I showed you a chart, you'd be like, oh, no fucking way. It crashed right off of Texas.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so that's where some of these like conspiratorial things are coming up. Like, did it really crash where they're saying it did? And then obviously you meet the pilots years later, and they can't tell you anything about it. and then they make that statement, there's no foul play on our part. I can see where questions arise and you're still like, this doesn't make sense.
There's a lot of things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
We could go left and right and up and down, and there are offshoots to this that go crazy. You know, go back to the guy that first called me that knew Dad's plane was going down. Okay, so we get in a lawsuit with a company that had like equipment on my dad's plane that was supposed to help him in an event that he ran out of oxygen. Okay, so we're in a lawsuit with them way back when, and this guy, he's befriended me, right? He's kind of become my friend, my mentor. Dad's gone. He's like, oh, you're gonna get through it. You're gonna get through it. Your dad was safe. He had oxygen in the plane. Something went wrong. Oxygen line kinked, whatever. And then we get in the lawsuit, right? And he comes in for the other side and has a picture that's time and date stamped of my dad's plane hours before it left with no oxygen in the plane, and he gives it to them, and the lawsuit's squashed. Why the fuck did he have that picture, and why did he never tell me? And my dad didn't fly without oxygen.
Yeah,
but he has a picture saying that he did. And why did he take a picture of it? And we've been talking for a year. You didn't tell me you had this, Did you fuck with my dad's plane? Right?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Was there?
You call me before Dad's plane goes down, and you're like, "Don't kill yourself. Don't turn to drugs and alcohol." I'm like, "Whoa, Dad's plane isn't down yet, but you're acting like it's gonna be."
Yeah. Was there any? Have you done any background? I mean, and just hearing like the story, obviously, with all these little parts, like of what your dad might have. Like, could he been into something else that would have caused somebody to hijack his plane?
No, this other guy flew his plane.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, he'd been a pilot in the past, and this other guy's real mysterious. I don't know. I don't know what his motives could have been, but after the lawsuit, I never spoke to him again. He went from talking to me every day, Then he springs this surprise and disappears.
Or could it be the company that called him and was like, "Listen, dude, we'll pay you this amount of money or whatever to squash this thing if you do this."
Could have been.
Yeah.
What started off is a mission to get some closure and answers, right? Especially with your dad. Do you feel like you're still not there yet of getting that closure, or do you feel like you've gotten some sort of closure?
No, I'm settled now. You spend however many years going through this, while also, I'm trying to get married and get a real career and start a real life and get over losing all these people in these tragic ways in 2 years' time. I got pieces of my dad's plane. I don't know what happened exactly, and I never will. But he's gone, and I'm just do my best every day to live life like he would want me to.
Yeah.
And do good in the world and be a hard worker. And that's it. And I accept it. And I'm done. I'm honestly done digging. I dug for a long time, and it kills you.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, and I'm not obviously affected by what you went through, but I can tell you, I have, due to in my past career, obviously there were a lot of lives lost, and I see certain parents, siblings, they refuse to let go of how did they die when there's not specific answers. And some of them, it's still to this day, it's it drives them in everything they do. And it's most of the time it's unhealthy. It's an unhealthy obsession. And I can't judge those people because I haven't been through something like that. If one of my kids or somebody that that was close to me, a sibling, I don't know what I do, but I do see, like, just observing as an outsider, like it is almost an unhealthy obsession to where sometimes I think the better, and I've seen people do this too. It's like sort of like your mentality. They're like, you know what? They're dead. We have to like keep living our lives, but we'll live it for them and do our best, keep them in our memory each and every day. Live, you know, like I said, for them. And most of those people that do that, I see them sort of prospering in life, you know. Whereas some of the other people, it's still like this hook that's into them, and it keeps them from propelling forward.
Yeah, keeps them stuck.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, I think it for sure would be part of the grieving process, like in the beginnings.
Oh, for
like,
sure.
I don't know how I could not almost do the same thing. I mean, you went all in.
As on as I could have.
You know, but like you'll lose yourself, and if your dad was to comment on it now, I would imagine your dad would be like, you know, son, I want you to live your life and get married, and I don't want you obsessed over this, and
Yeah, have a fulfilling life.
yeah,
Right.
I'd want that for my son.
That's right.
Well, that's crazy though.
Yeah.
Man, do you what? I have this question though with your wife. When you first, she met you right before Hurricane Michael and all this. Was she like? I mean, she's like, "Well, I'm a teacher," and it's like,
Yeah.
"What do you do?" And you're like, "Well,
I'm on a mission.
Yeah. I'm like, and she kind of knew the backstory because my, you know, she was such good friends with my buddy's girlfriend. They went to Tennessee, so I never, you know, I didn't ever meet her in college, but. Yeah, no, what I loved so much about her was she was like, yeah, go do it. And then I really wanted to sail around the world afterward. You know, I'd become so in love with
Yeah, you put
sailing
so
in
much
the
time
water.
and effort into it.
Yeah, I was like, I think I'd like to, you know, donate. I wanted to donate the boat when I got done and then get my own and sail around the world. She was like, let's go do it.
yeah.
It was cool. She didn't really know everything in the world about me, but she knew, yeah, I was on a mission, and she was so accepting of it and trusting. You know, we were on that boat, and Hurricane Michael was bearing down on us, and she's like, I trust that if we need to leave, we'll leave, or if we can stay, we can stay. You know, she wasn't crying and screaming, and, you know, she was tough.
Yeah. Like, if things go south, we'll just go on Fast
Fast
Eddie's
Eddie's.
boat.
With the horse.
Yeah.
We need to get Fast Eddie on the podcast. soon.
Yeah, he
Good
sounds
Lord
like
knows
a character.
where he is,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
He's, yeah.
That's something, man. So, obviously, you live here. You live here.
Yeah,
now,
I live right down the road.
Yeah. How's things going here?
Good. I've got a good job. I like where I work. I got my captain's license, and go fishing a lot. I don't think I'd ever do charters, but it's a lot of work.
You still have a dream of sailing around the world, or that's something that could possibly be in the future?
Yeah, I could see it in the future, but like everyone's like, oh, don't you want to get a sailboat? Like, no, I would only get another sailboat if I lived on the boat and I had a mission. I don't necessarily enjoy like getting in the bay and going sailing. That's not super exciting for me. I want to go somewhere and do something.
Have a purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The act of going 6 knots and dealing with a sailboat and everything that comes with it and maintaining it is not that much fun. And really, to properly maintain a boat like that, you need to live on it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot imagine having a boat like that and not living on it. I can fix something every day.
It's like a full-time job. I lived on a buddy's boat for a while when I first got into the SEAL teams. I lived on one of my best friend's boats.
Really?
Yeah. Same. Like, it was funny when you were describing living that dock life. I was like, yep. I remember all the characters that are there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'd get off work and then it was like time for another job. Like now it's like, hey, let's go scrape all the barnacles off the boat. Let's go empty the shitter. Let's go do this. You know, it's a constant. You really have to be passionate about wanting to live on a boat and having that be your life.
Yeah.
And I got my experience and I'm like, I'm good, man. Like I don't need any of that in my life.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be a long time before I did that because exactly what you just said, Eddie. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a different life for
yeah.
sure.
That's right.
When did y'all get married?
We got married in 2020 during the coronavirus. We were supposed to have the big wedding in Memphis, and then we just we came down here because she'd always vacation down here, and I had a little bit too, and we got married on the beach in Inlet, and then
Nice.
went back to Nashville and said, all right. I was like, I get Hawaii, Panama City, the boat. I was like, I'm living on the water the rest of my life. I got to get down there. I want to fish, and here we are.
This is the place to be for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Great place.
This is the bubble,
yeah, it
which I
is.
think everybody found out during the pandemic.
It's true.
Yeah.
The takeover.
Awesome, dude. Thank you for coming on and telling your story.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, man. It's that's quite a story. It's even though like you never got to, get to go where you wanted to, like accomplish your mission, your story is inspiring nonetheless, because like the amount of hard work and the drive that you had, all those, it sounded like a long time of like a lot of work that you put into it, and just sort of, I mean, you were working with scraps to get everything together. And then, obviously to have a hurricane come in, you can't control that, but just that alone, I think is inspirational.
Like
sure.
Grit, the tenacity.
Yeah.
Where you're not saying, oh, well, I don't have enough money to get a boat. Well, no, I'll do a GoFundMe. Like, I'll figure this out.
Yeah, buy a shitty boat and fix it.
Yeah.
It floats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
I'm sure your dad, wherever he is looking down, smiling like, dude, you put in the work to try and find him. And I'm sure that made him proud.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I do.
Agree. Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Thank
Yeah.
you guys. Appreciate
Out.
it.
Out.